Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, VC Coin in History, where we dive deep into the world of coins, collectibles, the coin in question, marked with inscriptions such as Liberty, Égalité, Fraternité, 5 cents 2010D, United States of America, and E Pluribus Unum, represents a fascinating blend of American and French, symbolic traditions that have deep historical, philosophical, and political meanings. To begin with, the phrase Liberty, Égalité, Fraternité is the national motto of France, born during the French Revolution of the late 18th century, which emphasized universal human rights, equality before the law, and fraternity among citizens. This slogan later became permanently associated with the French Republic and engraved on monuments, coins, and official seals. In contrast, the American motto E Pluribus Unum, Latin for out of many, one, was adopted by the United States in 1756 and placed on the Great Seal in 1782, symbolizing the unification of the 13 original colonies into one nation. On American coinage, it appears alongside In God We Trust, which became the official U.S. motto in 1956, reflecting a cultural and spiritual identity rooted in faith. The reference to 2010 D5 cents suggests the Jefferson nickel minted at the Denver Mint in Colorado in the year 2010, which typically features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. However, the unusual mix of inscriptions like République and La Griffel points toward a cross-cultural or commemorative context. Sometimes, designers, engravers, or artistic movements introduce experimental or symbolic coins that merge different ideals of liberty from Europe and America, underlining the shared democratic heritage of both nations that fought monarchies and sought to establish republics. The name La Griffel likely refers to a French artist or engraver, possibly Philippe Lagriffoul, known for numismatic and medallic works in France, and his influence would explain the blending of French revolutionary slogans with American mottos on a single piece, thereby making the coin not an ordinary circulation nickel but rather a medal, commemorative token, or fantasy piece meant for collectors. Historically, both France and the United States exchanged ideals and inspiration. The French Revolution was partially inspired by the American Revolution, and in return, American political philosophy absorbed French Enlightenment ideals. That is why seeing both mottos side by side on a piece of metal is not accidental. It visually represents centuries of shared struggles for democracy, human dignity, and popular sovereignty. The date 2010 may refer not only to the minting year but also to a period when mints across the world were issuing coins and medals, honoring transatlantic cooperation, anniversaries of independence, or artistic projects that celebrated liberty as a universal value. Thus, this object is far more than its face value of 5 cents. It is a symbolic artifact that unites liberty from the American, tradition with égalité and fraternité from the French, held together under mottos like E Pluribus Unum and In God We Trust. It reflects how coinage is not just money, but also a carrier of collective memory, philosophy, national identity, and international solidarity. Every inscription telling a story of revolutions, republics, ideals, and engravers who sought to preserve them in durable form. The next up top, too. The coin that carries the inscriptions Liberty, Égalité, Fraternité, 5 cents, 2017D, United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, Liberty, In God We Trust, République, and the signature of La Griffel is a remarkable cultural and numismatic object, because it does not simply represent 5 cents of monetary value, but rather embodies centuries of intertwined history between the American and French Republican ideals, and to understand it fully, one must look at both the American and French traditions that flow into its design. On the American side, the identification of 2017 D indicates a nickel struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado in the year 2017, when the Jefferson nickel was in circulation with the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, principal author of the U.S. Declaration of Independence, on the obverse, and his estate Monticello on the reverse, while also bearing the standard American mottos E Pluribus Unum, Latin for out of many one, a phrase chosen in 1776 to symbolize the union of 13 colonies into a single nation, and In God We Trust, which became the official U.S. motto in 1956 and reflects the spiritual character embedded in American identity. Yet, this particular piece is unusual because it also bears the powerful French Revolutionary motto Liberty, Égalité, Fraternité, words born during the French Revolution of 1789, when the French people rose against monarchy and aristocracy and proclaimed the principles of freedom, equality before the law, and fraternity among all citizens. a motto that has since become enshrined in French constitutions, engraved on monuments, and stamped on official currency of the French Republic. And its presence alongside American mottos suggests an intentional blending of two revolutionary traditions that inspired one another across the Atlantic in the late 18th century. For Jefferson and Franklin studied Enlightenment thinkers like Rousseau and Montesquieu, while French revolutionaries took courage from the success of the American independence struggle. The appearance of the word République and the name Lagrefouille points even more strongly to French artistic influence. For Philippe Lagrefouille is a known French engraver and medalist associated with the Monnaie de Paris, whose works often feature allegorical depictions of liberty, wearing the Phrygian cap, a classical symbol of emancipation from tyranny. And this implies that the coin in question is not a standard U.S. circulation nickel, but rather a commemorative fantasy or artistic metal that merges American and French ideals into a single design. In this sense, the coin becomes a symbolic bridge between two nations that, though separated by an ocean, have shared histories of struggle for freedom, the drafting of declarations of rights, and the pursuit of republican governance. And when one studies such an object carefully, every inscription becomes a doorway into a deeper story. Liberty recalls Jefferson's stirring words that all men are created equal. Égalité reminds us of the French insistence that privilege must be abolished. Fraternité speaks to the bonds that must unite citizens beyond divisions of class. E pluribus unum commemorates the unity of diversity in America, and In God We Trust reflects a moral and spiritual dimension that Americans have carried into public life. By placing all of these mottos together, the engraver created not just a piece of money, but a philosophical statement in metal, a reminder that the values of liberty, equality, fraternity, unity, and faith are not confined to one nation but are part of a broader human aspiration. Thus, even though the coin is denominated as 5 cents, its true worth lies in the historical memory it preserves, the artistic craftsmanship it represents, and the dialogue it stages between two revolutions that forever changed the world. And for collectors, historians, and philosophers alike, this 2017 D-piece, attributed to Lagrefouille, stands as a hybrid artifact, a symbol of transatlantic republicanism, and a miniature monument to the enduring dream of human freedom and solidarity that continues to echo across centuries. The next up, top 3, the coin inscribed with the words liberty, égalité, fraternité, 5 cents, 2013 D, United States of America, e pluribus unum, liberty, in God we trust, République, and associated with the name. Lagrefouille stands as a fascinating numismatic object that bridges two great republican traditions, the American and the French, and tells a long story of shared ideals, historical revolutions, and the symbolism of coinage as a tool of cultural memory. To begin, the American side of the coin is identified by the value of 5 cents and the mint mark D for Denver, showing it was struck at the U.S. Mint facility in Colorado in the year 2013, a year in which the standard circulating nickel bore the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, along with the mottos E pluribus unum, out of many, one, and In God We Trust, both of which represent core aspects of American national philosophy, the former expressing the unity of the original 13 colonies into one nation, and the latter reflecting the spiritual and religious character that became formally embedded as the U.S. national motto. In 1956, however, this particular piece becomes unusual when examined further because it carries not only American inscriptions but also French revolutionary language, with the motto Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, which emerged during the French Revolution of 1789 and went on to symbolize the Republic's vision of human dignity, equal citizenship, and brotherhood among people, a slogan officially enshrined in French constitutions and engraved on monuments, schools, and coins throughout the modern history of France, and its presence here demonstrates the deep philosophical kinship between the democratic revolutions of France and America, each of which influenced the other in the 18th century, as thinkers like Montesquieu, Rousseau, and Voltaire inspired Jefferson, Franklin, and Madison, while the American struggle for independence encouraged French revolutionaries to believe in the possibility of throwing off monarchy and aristocratic privilege. The mention of République and the name Lagrefouille gives a further clue that the design is not an ordinary U.S. circulation coin, but a medallic or commemorative issue, or perhaps even a private fantasy piece struck for collectors. Since Philippe Lagrefouille is a noted French artist and engraver associated with the Monnaie de Paris, and his works often incorporate classical symbolism of the Republic, with allegorical figures of liberty wearing the Phrygian cap. embodying the continuity of revolutionary ideals across centuries, thus suggesting that this coin-like object could have been produced as an artistic creation blending French and American emblems of liberty. In this light, the coexistence of e pluribus unum and liberty, egalite, fraternite on the same surface becomes an eloquent dialogue across the Atlantic, a reminder that both nations, despite their different historical paths, have anchored their identities in the pursuit of liberty, the assertion of equality before the law, the cultivation of fraternity among citizens, and the reliance upon faith or civic unity as guiding principles. And when one studies the coin in hand, the inscriptions become more than mere letters. They are condensed histories of revolutions, of the drafting of declarations such as the American Declaration of Independence in 1776 and the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen in 1789, of struggles against tyranny, of the construction of republics, and of the persistence of symbols that could be carried in pockets, exchanged in markets, and passed down across generations. So while the face value of the piece might suggest it is only a nickel worth 5 cents, the real value lies in its symbolic density, its artistic authorship, and its bridging of cultures. For coinage has always been more than metal. It is a medium through which nations tell their stories, assert their values, and immortalize their heroes and mottos. And this particular 2013 D object, with the mingling of American and French inscriptions, continues that tradition by creating a hybrid artifact of liberty that celebrates both republics, both revolutions, and both peoples who dreamed of a world founded upon freedom, justice, and solidarity.